topic, but
Michigan, this is Barack Obama. I want to talk with you about the Alyssa Slotkin I know. Alyssa is a true public servant who has dedicated her career to serving the American people, no matter who is in the White House. I saw that leadership and character up close. Alyssa is the kind of leader we need. Tough, independent, and effective. She'll get the job done. And she will make you proud.
I'm Alyssa Slotkin, and I approve this message.
Hello, Detroit. Election Day is November 5th. But why wait? Beginning Saturday, October 19th, you can vote early at one of Detroit's 14 early vote centers. Early voting runs through Sunday, November 3rd. So let your voice be heard and vote early. If you're voting by absentee ballot, return your ballot as soon as possible. For more information, visit our website or give us a call. And remember to vote, because it's not only your right, it's the right thing to do.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, back from Istanbul, and raring to go. You know, you would have thought that it would have been a respite from what's going on in the United States, but outside my hotel room, what was in my direct line of sight? A building that said Trump Tower. So there you go.
Did you get to fly with your beloved Turkish Airlines?
I flew my beloved Turkish Airlines on the way there, but since Turkish Airlines has not gone daily out of Detroit, that'll happen next month. I did fly Lufthansa on the way back.
Okay.
So yeah, but
Okay.
Turkish on the way there was.
Did you contribute to the inflation in Turkey?
I certainly did. I think, let's see, what did I tell the passport control guy? I bought 2 fountain pens, 2 bottles of ink, some Turkish Delight, and some apple tea. He said, "You bought apples?" I said, "No, apple tea." So
did you see Eric Adams on the plane?
actually, I think they named the side of the plane after him. So, but apparently there's a lot going on over here. So let's go ahead and dig in. I know, what do I mean? We've got our usual troika of lawyers of Bill Seikaly, Joel Sklar, and Steve Fishman. We have pollster Ed Sarpolus. We have president of BME Consulting and former director of Wayne County Public Services Department, Beverly Watts in the center square. We have labor and community activist Barb Ingalls, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. So, Joni loved Chachi, and it seems as though Trump loves Hitler. The Donald has been going around expressing admiration for the former Nazi leader and also for fascism. The reason I mentioned Joni loves Chachi, of course, is that one of Trump's most ardent supporters is Scott Baio, who played said Chachi in Happy Days and then the subsequent spinoff show. So, what are we to make of this rhetoric? And I suppose at this point, does it even matter to anybody?
It doesn't really matter other than conversation from me perspective, because I read all the Hitler bios that were produced during the Second World War. And everything I see Trump do, I can find in one of the bios that was produced by the original OSI on Hitler, even down to words and phrases that Trump is using. So to me, it's quite critical to understand that.
You know, the interesting thing is, I mean, this has come out in 2022, really. Peter Baker and Susan Glasser wrote a book in 2022 talking about this. I think the only difference is that John Kelly has come forward and said, yeah, it was me who was the source of all this. So,
well, it wasn't Joe Klein and Anonymous, that's for sure. Bill.
I mean, I think it's it shouldn't surprise anyone. You know, if you look at how he talks and how he behaves, I agree with Ed. It's pretty consistent. One would think that the fact that Mark Kelly, 4-star general, you know, doesn't usually endorse or tries to stay out of politics, would come out and say this, and so many people within Trump's orbit and who were part of his cabinet have said he's not qualified for these reasons. I agree. It's not going to make any difference to Trump supporters. They don't pay any attention to any of that stuff. The only place it might make a difference is trying to get out the vote the fear factor amongst the other side. But I'm amazed at the Teflon nature of Donald Trump. I don't understand the American people on this issue. It's hard to imagine.
They don't know history.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why he and Vance are just so insistent on people early voting? Because are they worried about something else that might stick more than the Hitler connection?
There's been a rumor going around now for about 3 days that something huge is about to break, and it's going to be, and because they keep warning, the Trump team keeps warning people that about deep fakes and don't believe any video you see and blah blah blah. So, but I'm beginning to think that's just Twitter teasing. It's like,
What?
So Nancy, the rumor about after the Arnold Palmer thing about Trump actually resembling a Ken doll, it might be true.
I'd like to see that video. So,
Okay.
Can somebody please tell me what they could imagine that would?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, what you were saying before, it won't make any difference. It won't make any difference. I mean, we forget people followed Jim Jones into hell, with his poison Kool-Aid. No, it was more than that. It was 40 some years ago. But it's hard. It's hard because leaving a cult, you have to admit I was. That's a very difficult thing for most people to do.
I think Bill Maher put it best. He said, there is no such thing as an October surprise for Trump. There's nothing, essentially saying there's nothing that can come out that would change. People would go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. There is no such thing.
Right. He has spent the last 8 years telling his fans over and over again that you can't believe the news, that you can't believe all this stuff, that it's all made up. And they I think it's desensitized people. I mean, I dislike the press, but for completely different reasons. They just don't believe anything anymore. And with the rise of AI, they figure that everything can be made up and it doesn't matter. And then you got to default back to he hates the same things that they do. And that's what
Steve's only got his little finger up over here, and nobody's paying attention to him. Let's try to get
Fishman.
Yep.
What do you guys think of the towering silence or the excuse making by the rest of the Republican Party? I find that to be more fascinating than anything. I mean, I agree with everything you guys are saying about the base itself. Nothing's going to matter. He was right when he said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. But what about the rest of them? I mean,
they're afraid. No, they're afraid. I believe in just listening to some of them. They're just afraid. I think they're going to wait and see because everyone keeps saying this race is so tight, 50-50. So when you think of it, if he wins, I doubt that he will, but if he wins and they stepping out here now, I mean, that cult following, just like we were saying, those people are 10 toes down for him. So that's what I believe. The Republicans are quiet because he may have a chance.
Beverly, I don't disagree with what you just said. That's why they're doing this. But I think that Steve, there's a bigger point in what Steve's pointing out. See, I think Rogers, who, from everything I've heard from people who I think should know, hates Trump. Yeah. And yet he's taking the knee, kissed the ring. And in my opinion, that shows absolute lack of character and disqualifies him from being eligible to be a senator.
Yeah. What we need? We need a Khmer Rouge in this country who will come along and it's like and Nikki Haley, we don't give a shit what you said. We heard what you said on stage at the
but Bill, what you're saying, it sounds rational to rational. This is not a normal rational candidate. So you're talking about some people that can say, hey, I have ethics, I have morals, I love this country, but then I support him and I'm quiet. You can't have both.
Yeah.
Nancy, just to
point out that Nancy is not speaking for the group. We do not support the Khmer Rouge in this country.
Yeah. Well, Bill, I think you support the Moulin Rouge coming to America.
Okay, different.
We need re-education camps. That's what we need.
One thing I think Steve had made a good point on, the fact is that all the polling nationally, 9 of the seats that the Republicans thought they were going to retain or hold are now in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're seeing that they're the bottom line is they were hoping to be able to do whatever Trump wanted as president. But it's now seen they may not be in a position. They're probably, the House is probably going to go Democratic. If they lose too many Senate seats, they're watered down their ability to cut a deal with Democrats. And so that's what you're seeing now.
So, Ed, I mean, one thing I noticed is that Ted Cruz, who's in a very tight race in Texas, apparently, isn't really leaning into Trump right now. I mean, is that a calculation? Yeah.
He can't. Same thing's happening in Florida. You're looking across even Montana. To suppose even that the universal soldier guy. Like he's got problems now. His numbers are tumbling. So everywhere you go, there are problems with the base at the House. Remember, this is like Bill Clinton in '92. He won, but everybody below him lost.
I was going to say something real quick about what Bill said about Mike Rogers. I think it's unfair because so much of the Republican Party is where Mike Rogers is in terms of sucking up. I mean, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio,
Howard's
all of them. That is the core of the Republican Party right now, and there are people like Fred Upton and other people are trying to get the party back. Right. They're trying to get it back where there's some sanity there.
Do you think a single MAGA, even a Michigan MAGA, do you think a single MAGA even knows who Fred Upton is? I mean, the people like us were all like, oh, that's really something that guy was, right. But they're all like, who?
But you got to remember in the day, Fred Upton was a MAGA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I remember that.
Yeah. But I do have a good question. Where's John James? He seems very quiet.
He's at my gym, Beverly. He comes to the Rochester Lifetime.
Okay.
Well, let me tell you what's going on right now. The courtesy of the Detroit News put out a poll that was weighted Republican, and they still have him below 50%. Okay, the poll that was done by two independent pollsters, and I did the numbers that I did starting in January tracking the poll. John James and Carmen Linger have been tied since January. The Detroit News pollster, a little bit more Republican, made a little bit more base, has him up leading 47 to 43. But the bottom line, he's never broke 50%. He's in trouble because a 6% independent vote. If it breaks for Carmen Linger, he's done. And he knows Republicans have not been giving him the money he hoped.
But Ed, I mean, I'm also noticing again, like we saw last time, a really tepid campaign, at least when it comes to ad buy from Carl Marlinga. Now there's a few more ads that are coming up, but none of them seem to necessarily be very inspiring. I mean, I don't understand because it seems as though it's a seat for him to take.
Well, you got to remember the fact he's not running his campaign.
He's not dead yet.
No, the TCCC says we're going to give you the $5 million, but we will spend it for you. His campaign has no say in the messaging. I talked to Carl because Carl and I are friends. We're both Kashubian on our mother's sides. But the point being is they're not allowing him to control his campaign. They're not.
Wow.
So basically how we're dealing with Ukraine when it comes to aid. Okay.
I sent him some money.
I want to say
Carl Marlinga $50.
Oh no. Alyssa Slotkin, the anti-ads against Alyssa Slotkin, you may see one where she says she gave money to foreign EV companies who then laid off. The foreign EV company is Stellantis, who is registered in Europe as their headquarters. And that's how they're, I mean, when you see these ads, it's just mind-boggling. You're like, what's going on here? You can't even unpack it. It's just
more proof of the schmuckitude of Charlie LaDuff, because he's now going hard after Alyssa Slotkin. Oh, the pretend farmer, blah blah blah. It's like, give me a break.
Baghdad Betty, or so. What's he called?
Yeah, Baghdad Betty. Yeah, why hasn't she answered for all the Iraqis who died because of her advice when she was 24 years old and just joining the CIA?
Hasn't that farm been in her family for like decades?
Yeah, it's the high grade. I mean, it was
wait, Saeed, we're talking about facts now.
Right.
You want to deal with facts?
Bill,
first of all, Charlie LaDuff would probably bring up to the fact that the high grade farm up there was closely tied a little bit with Denny McClain and the whole Pete sausage back in the 70s and the 80s.
You know, Bill, if you wanted to take me to the woodshed, you could do it in private. You didn't have to go ahead and publicly shame me that way. But you know, what did I ever do to you other than say, let's look at that photo of yours from, you know, back in the day? So,
we have to see the photo today.
That's all. Well, speaking of
come on.
Before you segue, Saeed, could I take 1 second here?
Yeah.
My lovely, wonderful, magnificent wife. The only reason I'm invited on this show is because I'm married to this wonderful woman. She's my connection to Allan. The only reason my friends hang out with me, the only reason my brothers associate with me, is because I am fortunate enough to be married to this wonderful woman, and she's only going to be able to watch the first half of the show. And I wanted to wish her a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tony.
Mrs.
Happy
Seikaly.
birthday. She's all that Bill said. She is
Yes.
and more. She's a mensch.
Happy
By the way, what is a female equivalent of mensch?
Yeah, you can call it female
Steve?
mensch, but
Steve, you're the
A balabusta.
Okay.
Balabusta?
A balabusta. Okay.
Okay.
although I think
Steve,
a balabusta is somebody who's good in the kitchen, somebody who's a good, but
Yeah, I'm Irish. Balabusta might mean something else.
Yeah, because Steve, you are our OYD, the Oxford Yiddish Dictionary. So thank you for that.
Steve, I heard one. Let me just before we segue again. I heard a Yiddish term on a show the other day. Shikker.
drunk.
What's a shikker? Drunk?
Drunk, a shikur. That comes from Hebrew.
That's what I figured. That's what I figured it was. But it was
okay.
Context.
Yeah, you say if somebody, an old Jewish man, say, "Oh, he's a shikker." Oh my God!
Who could listen to him?
I would have texted you, but I knew that you would.
I'm going to use that one now.
That's a good one. You were going to do what? You were going to text me?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to say.
That's a big waste of time.
We've got a lot of endorsements that are flying around. But before I get to that, Allan, I know you've got some video of Trump supporters when it comes to understanding what their candidate represents.
Be teaching critical race theory?
No.
Why not?
I feel like honestly it brings about more racism, bringing more issues around that don't need to be.
What is critical race theory for people that don't understand it?
See, I really don't even know. I'm assuming.
Do you think Americans should ban fracking?
No.
You don't?
No.
Do you feel strongly about fracking?
That's a good question.
Not to drill this point home, but people that are involved in fracking, what are they doing?
I don't know.
Your friend.
That's the frightening part. People hear these little phrases, they have no idea what it is, and they're against it or they're for it, and they have no idea what it is.
Yeah, but we've been here before.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Hand. We've been here before, Joel. Gee, Mr. Hand, am I going to pass U.S. history? Gosh, Mr. Spicoli, I don't know. So, but we've had, of course, Michigan, given the fact that it's such a battleground state, everybody seems to be coming to Michigan to stump for their respective candidates. In fact, we had Eminem, who provided some of his support for the Harris-Walz campaign. Allan.
Now, notice my palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on my sweater already. Mom's spaghetti. I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready to drop bombs, but I keep...
That is a black man sounding like a white man who tries to sound like a black man when he raps.
You mean Brian Gumbel?
I missed him.
Beverly attended that.
Beautifully.
Yes, he was a fine looking one too, especially while I was behind. I was at the event and I was behind the stands too. So he looks just as good from behind as in the front.
Oh, wait, Beverly, wait. It's a family show here.
We just got done talking about Arnold Palmer's
Wow.
No, but that was before
We
the
left that
before the show
behind.
started. So there,
I just
yeah.
thought it was a scene from Tropic Thunder.
Well,
I thought this was completely in response to Trump allegations that he looks tired and old and lacks energy.
Yeah.
Because he clearly does not. I mean, this guy still got it. His hair may have turned white, but
I love it when Obama code switches, and these maggots go crazy over that. Why is he all of a sudden trying to sound like he's more black than he is? He's very articulate. And it's just like, I mean,
but it was just electrifying, building up to him from the first having the former Lions, player come out, and then building right up to it. I mean, it was just over the top, over the roof. That Huntington place, the roof could have just came off. It was electrifying.
And can we note Alyssa Slotkin's rocking the leather jacket there? I mean,
oh yeah.
She
was all in for, like she said, Slim Shady. She was all in. And then you can't match with the governor came right before that. She had her glasses on. So it was just Detroit all the way. Big Gretch, all of that. And so
but Georgia got Springsteen. I wanted Springsteen.
When I was in Israel in 2022, I was getting a shawarma, and I had my Detroit Tigers cap on, and the kid who was serving me was like about 20 years old, and he goes, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Detroit." I said, "Have you heard of it?" He goes, "Yeah, Eminem."
But are you sure he wasn't asking you if that's what you wanted for dessert?
Right. I love it. But one of the other best parts about it is that before any of the speakers start, from the time they opened the doors at 4, they had a DJ, and he was pumping the crowd up for at least 2 hours before everyone walked out. And they reminded everyone of Trump's comments when he was here in Detroit. And so they just kept having the crowd chant, "We will show him how we are. We will show him, you're going to talk about us at the polls." So everybody was just geared up. By the time the first speaker came out, it was over the top.
We have another Eminem reference in the video.
Time left before the election, the candidates are hauling out all the big guns. On Trump's side, of course, the big gun, I believe, is in Arnold Palmer's pants. But for the Democrats, big guns means endorsements in the swing states. Last night in Detroit, Vice President Harris got a musical endorsement, Eminem, baby. Yeah, Mr. Marshall. Yeah. Mr. Marshall, 8 Mile Shady Mathers himself. You know, somewhere Trump is yelling at his age, "How could M&Ms betray me? I don't understand. Is there no loyalty? Every day I stuff handfuls into my cheeks."
My prediction is that Trump's next indictment is going to be for grave robbing Arnold Palmer to hide the evidence.
I just want to say, I remember I was living in Indiana when Eminem first came on the scene, and I had an editor at the time who was like an absolute music nut. I mean, he listened to everything. He understood everything. He was very smart about this, and he said, "This is the most appalling, this is terrible. This is appalling lyricism. It's anti-feminist. It's, everything about Eminem was bad." And this was like the Slim Shady LP. And look what a difference, 30 years makes. I mean, suddenly he's going to be a grandfather. He stands up for the right things. I mean, it blows. It's like a life is long, and there are many chapters.
So who do you think? Well, who do you think are the most consequential endorsements in this cycle on both sides?
Me? You're asking me?
Yeah, Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
I think the best endorsements that she can get are from the military people, from the generals, and General Kelly now just joined the crew. That's exactly what we need, and the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. McChrystal, all these are people who carry a lot of weight, hopefully, with those, although I don't really believe there's people out there who haven't made up their minds, but maybe they don't want to vote for her either. And I think that'll help a lot. I don't know about Beyonce. I kind of go with the generals.
Yeah, I agree with Steve on this one. I mean, yeah, the Swifties are great. That's fantastic. Beyonce's the entertainment, but those veterans, those generals, I believe that crucial.
Bill.
I think that there's been a group. I happen to agree with Steve. I think they're the most important for the don't vote for Trump people. Even if they don't vote for Harris, getting those people out to not vote for Trump. I think that Taylor Swift, who, by the way, there was an article yesterday that I read about how much of a hit she's taken in terms of popularity because of this, because Trump people are trash talking her. I think that Taylor Swift activating young voters and getting them registered has been a phenomena. Whether it'll make a difference, when you have this tight of a race, all these slivers of support difference. And I think that may be one we go back to and say, boy, that really tipped the scales.
I think regionally, Eminem is a big plus here. I think he's super popular. When they did the train station concert, when he came on, people went crazy. I think when he was at that concert Beverly saw, I mean, people were really totally receptive. So at least regionally, I think he's the man here. You know, he was at the Lions games when the Lions were in the playoffs, and people loved that he was embracing the Lions. Where you see, I was wondering this morning, where's Kid Rock been? For Trump.
You may wonder about it, but could we not talk about that? If he shows back up, I'm going to be mad at you, Alan.
but do you think Eminem is courting what seems to be a real focal point here? I mean, Al Sharpton, Eminem, Obama, Kwame Kilpatrick, the black male vote in the Metro Detroit area.
Well, I have to agree with you on that. The male vote is the Eminem appeals to the black male, okay, because when they treat him like they're one of him, okay, and one of them, they're back and forth. The other thing is with the military is when I go back to all Carl Levin's campaign, it was the military that saved Carl Levin every election cycle because they came out and supported him because he was accused of being the liberal. So the older male, you got the military. The younger male, Eminem is respected. And they see him in the community. That's why it's important here in the state.
All right, Barb.
You know, I think that the weight of all of these endorsements, though, you've got Billie Eilish, you've got Taylor Swift, you've got Eminem, Jack
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce, but I mean, he's an older. But I mean, if you're going up the pile here,
right.
and Springsteen and people like that, John Mellencamp, you're getting into the boomers and the Gen Zs. I mean, I think it's really smart. Organizing and registering young people in this country is not a small thing. And I agree that, in terms of weight, the generals are really important. Really, they're covering many bases they can, and whoever gets young women and young men into the voting booth or into their absentee ballots are doing God's work in this country right now.
On the other side, we haven't talked about Trump's support, Trump's endorsements, because I think they're important. Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, these are big endorsements.
It's Kim Jong-un. God, get your Korean dictators right, man. Nancy.
If you want to, there's no shortage of things that can make a person cry these days. But if you want to cry in that way that is like that kind of, anyway, if you want to cry in a particularly specific way, go on YouTube and Google Elvis Costello, Penny Lane, White House, and you will see a beautiful performance. It was a tribute to Paul McCartney that the Obamas held, and it was an East Room show, which they did like a lot of them. And Penny and Elvis Costello sings Penny Lane, and they have a member of the Marine Band, the president's own Marine Band, do the little trumpet solo in the middle of it. It is a beautiful, beautiful moment. And then think, what was the Trump White House like when it came to arts and culture, which are things that we should all care about? I mean, it doesn't have to be the number one thing that we vote on the basis of, but it's an important part of this country because this country leads the world in production of popular culture, music.
Nancy, Melania bastardizing the Rose Garden was a major feat. But actually, I'm gonna do a McLaughlin group, and I'm gonna say the correct answer for most consequential endorsement is the insane clown posse for Harris.
That's right. Yeah, there's only one member though.
The Juggalos will tip this.
Let me just finish though. Think about all the artists who said they would not go to the Kennedy Center honors if the Trumps were sitting in the president's box. I mean, the people who make the music that we love, the movies that we love, the TV shows that we love, despise Trump for a very good reason. And I mean, how many cease and desist orders have been sent to, about his playlist it's really important that, I mean, you'd think Taylor Swift, Beyonce, who cares? but I care. And I mean, I'm not going to vote that way because Taylor Swift told me to, but if, 5 19-year-olds do, great. So.
You know who really cares, Nancy, is the guy who writes the songs that makes the whole world sing. So.
But Nancy, the other thing that you pointed out is that, Bruce Springsteen, for his ads, he dresses up as a blue collar person in a bar. Okay. He actually does. I mean, he looks like an everyday person hanging out in the neighborhood. Yeah. It's not classy. Basically, he just came down to earth and he's just talking straight person. That was one of the best ads I've seen.
Yeah, I love that. Ed, he's not the man who fell to earth. That's someone else.
His father is a bus driver.
Can we do a couple quick ads? Just 2 ads.
Yes.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Now, I have to confess that I haven't actually followed an endorsement made by a periodical since Mad Magazine favored the black spy over the white spy. But people do, I think, look at newspapers for a little bit of guidance when it comes to endorsements. And this week, we've got 2 major newspapers that seem to be in trouble regarding endorsements. One is the Washington Post, which hasn't endorsed. And the other is the fact that the Los Angeles Times editorial page editor quit after the owner of the LA Times vetoed the paper's endorsement of Kamala Harris. Is this just simply the culmination of big business being afraid to take a stand?
They love Donald Trump.
The Washington Post, are they not endorsing or they just haven't yet?
They haven't yet, but the rumor is going around that Bezos is holding them back because he has quite a few federal contracts, and he's concerned about losing them if Trump is reelected.
That's outrageous.
They love him.
Of course it is.
He sells papers.
That's outrageous.
He sells papers.
And, the Detroit News I see has said, once again, they're wringing their hands saying, you know what, we just can't endorse anyone, which is, the Detroit News readers are going to be so lost without them telling the president.
All 10 of them, yeah.
Nolan Finley's not going to stick his neck out, But these guys, these are Trump people. They're his contemporaries. They're his class. They want the tax cuts. They don't want to be bothered by regulations. They don't give a fuck. They're gonna do what they do no matter what. They'll be fine. So why would they stick their necks out for a silly thing like the integrity of our country?
So on the one hand, Barb, you've got the pusillanimous nature of the plutocrats here, and then on the other hand, you've also got some of the Richies leaning heavily in. But it has not escaped scrutiny by the government. In fact, the Department of Justice has warned Elon Musk about his $1 million voter petition giveaway scheme for Pennsylvania. What the hell is this? Anyone?
Can I say something, Steve?
Yeah.
There's some background noise coming from you. I don't know if you have something open or...
Nope.
Something open? Okay. All right.
Well, it's old-fashioned buying votes. Let's be real about this. In Detroit, when I was growing up in Detroit, you could when things got tough, people all of a sudden got TVs, and I couldn't figure out because they were paid off if they went and voted or supported somebody, they got a free TV. Okay, or back in the day with Early and Duggan, everybody got tickets to a Tigers game or a concert. This is an old tool that I've seen happen in Detroit back in the 60s and the 50s and even in the 70s.
Ed, there's somebody asking, one of our viewers is saying, thoughts about protests on the protest vote in Michigan. How do you think that group is going to translate into this Michigan vote?
The protest vote basically is a very limited cause, okay? Because of the fact that everything that's happening in Detroit with all the different black leaders, women and their school friends, people coming in, it's going to be a small number. You see, the cost of that is in Detroit. I mean, in Dearborn, where they're still struggling to hold the Arabs not to vote for anybody. Because right now, if you the polls I've seen in the Arab community, a lot of them are coming back. They are going to be voting, and many of them are going to vote for Harris. I mean, it's losing thing. And you got to remember the woman who ran as a U.S. Michigan a regent basically dropped her lawsuit against the Democratic Party. It's done. Okay, there's no support for her going much further on it.
And what did you and I talked about this the other day about the third-party candidates? Who any of them going to have any impact?
Well, there's always a small impact, but the 2016 you had 6% of the vote was controlled by independents. Republicans, Democrats stayed home. Then you go into 2020, they went from 6% to down to 1.5%. We're down into the lower end of this stuff because you don't see any campaigns on the third party. We don't have anybody really working the streets, spending money at all. They're sort of invisible.
Well, I mean, we do see, though, I mean, I'm just saying from what I'm hearing from the community and some of the agitation and the frustration. There was an incident on Monday when Vice President Kamala Harris was in town. By the way, I got to see Air Force Two fly into Oakland Pontiac Airport.
Oh, cool.
It came in really low. Yes, these things actually thrill me, Nancy. You know, I lead a boring life.
That's how we would describe your life, Saeed.
Nobody believes that.
Yeah, you know, because there's still times when I like to lower the window and say the plane. But the whole idea of these supposed to be opportunities for being more inclusive and all took a bit of a derailment when a former congressional candidate Ahmed Ghanim, who was running in the primaries against Haley Stevens, was removed from the Harris event that was held at the Royal Oak Music Theater. Ghanim went right on to social media. I mean, I don't think he even hardly waited until he got out of the theater to go ahead and say that he was removed, left it kind of dangling as to why. Barb, you had your hand up.
I read that the venue kicked him out. That somebody from the Royal Oak Music Theater, maybe their security. And if you go off into the Royal Oak Music Theater, you might believe that because they're kind of legendary assholes.
I think I think somebody in the campaign was worried that he might, you know, he got invited, he got cleared through, and then a Royal Oak police detective said, you got to go. And he's like, well, what's going on? And he goes, well, I don't know. And he says, the cop says the venue wants you go on. And he goes, well, who's the venue? And the cop says, I have no idea. And I think they were worried it was with Liz Cheney. It was supposed to be a love fest between Liz Cheney and Kamala. And I think maybe they were worried that he was going to, you know, raise some issues. He's been very vocal about the Israeli wars in the Middle East. And I think they were worried about that. I think I don't think the venue just said, oh my God, get that guy out of here. I mean, it was fucked up. I mean, it really is an embarrassment, and the campaign apologized, but
the campaign apologized within a half a day. So I have a little bit of background about this, and so not to reveal my sources, but from what it appears to have happened is a Secret Service did clear him, so they didn't have any problem with this at all. So he was not deemed to be a security risk in any measure. It seems as though a staffer who was running the logistics, somebody perhaps from Haley Stevens' campaign itself, was the one who spotted him and then identified him. And it was apparently part of the logistics that the venue security took care of it, because obviously the campaign didn't have its own security. Secret Service didn't have a problem with him. And if that's the case, then it sounds somewhat vindictive, because Ghanim, of course, ran against Haley Stevens in the primary. So again, this is what's out there. But I think it's more the
I think that's a rumor. that is a rumor that I've heard.
Yeah, I've got it from
but maybe you
maybe
you know it.
background.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe you know it more than that.
I know the rumor monger. No, but from the standpoint of the optics, it just gave a little bit more sauce to the goose of saying, see, this is how they are. Even though you're right, the Harris campaign came right out and apologized to him. But the fact that you still have then what could appear to be indiscipline, that local satrapies for the Harris campaign, like Haley Stevens, and maybe a rogue staffer on her part who said, you know, who shall rid me of these this meddlesome priest, and decided to go down to Canterbury and behead Beckett. I don't know. Okay, that's way too much medieval history for us.
That's pretty good though.
Movie was great.
Can I point a couple things out in connection with this story? One, I'm bothered by the fact that this kind of thing's much more likely to happen to an Arab, in particular Palestinian, than any other group at this point in time, which is troublesome. The Haley Stevens connection bothers me because of what happened to Andy Levin, who tried to have a balanced approach, and AIPAC came out millions of dollars into the Stevens campaign. That kind of makes all of this fit. But more importantly, this is completely inconsistent with who we ought to be as a country. You may disagree with his position, but he made it real clear he wasn't there to protest. He wasn't going to make a scene. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, this is the big tent. This is who the Democratic Party ought to be. And I think more importantly, I agree completely with Ed. A number of members of my family, a number of Palestinians that I know, and a lot of Muslims that I know were not planning on voting for Harris because of what's going on in the Middle East. The vast majority of them have now come around. A couple of people we haven't been able to, but that's because if you think that Trump is the answer to those problems, you're not paying attention. You're just not paying attention. So, again, to anybody who's listening, I would hope that if you're thinking about either not voting at all for Harris or voting for Trump because of a single issue, the Middle East, I'm a Palestinian. This is very close to my heart. Trump is not the solution.
Right.
By the way, Bill, her name is actually Egyptian, not Palestinian. And the other reason I think why a lot of Arabs and Muslims are shying away from Trump is because they're more phallocentric and they realize what Trump doesn't have. So just, yeah.
By the way, Saeed, the news just broke. No endorsement from the New York Times or from the Washington Post this year. And it was announced this morning in a tense staff meeting. So there you go.
Interesting.
It's shameful. I mean, look, I worked there. I was there for 11 years. I can tell you that editorial page is pretty fucking liberal. It's like there's no way in hell they would be. They're not going to do a Nolan Finley and go, their columnists are, they have some conservative columnists, but for the most part. But I was going to say back to the gentleman being evicted from the Royal Oak Theater is that you have some really inexperienced young people helping run the campaigns. They have no clue. They're trying to just shut it down and seal it. They don't have the vision to see the consequences of it, and they fucked up. And it's an embarrassment to the campaign.
But I'm glad to see they came out and especially the Harris campaign apologized, because I agree, especially what Bill was saying, democracy, anyone who can attend both sides of any rally that's not there to interrupt and protest should be allowed to attend. And so I'm glad to see that even before this incident, I've attended, like many of you, a lot of the rallies you see. It's a very diverse crowd with the Harris campaign, as is what we saw this week in Detroit. So this is an isolated, unfortunate incident, but I'm glad they stepped up and apologized.
So we have Michael Pappas informing us that Friedman says that Jews and Arabs should vote for Harris. I'm not sure if that's Thomas, Milton, or Kinky. Friedman, but I don't.
Poor Kinky, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. So, and we lost Bill there for a second. So, all right, and he's back. Well,
with the best band name ever. So, yeah.
Well, I
Kinky
still
Friedman?
prefer the Ayatollah of rock and roll, the late and great Mojo Nixon. But it seems as though voting is beginning here, early voting tomorrow in Michigan, and it has already begun elsewhere. And we already see some problems. Apparently, in Phoenix, Arizona, a mailbox was torched, and it looks like some ballots were in fact destroyed.
Oh my God.
The Georgia Secretary of State has said that it has repelled a cyber attack on one of its voting sites. Are we just simply going to go ahead and have a volatile time? And should we not mail greeting cards for like the next 2 weeks just in case grandma gets screwed?
No birthday cards.
Well, to my mind, the 9 days of early voting is the best possible voting reform.
Yep.
I mean, it's better than no reason absentee. I mean, it's like, it really does give people who perhaps have a one-day conflict on election day it gives, to have an alternative. It's the best. I've stopped. I used to be on the permanent absentee list. I'm now a committed early voter. And I think people, if they're worried, vote in person. You got 9 days to do it, and you should be able to get away. And it means the lines are shorter. It's just, everything about it is easier, and it's a great thing to do.
I say vote early. I say vote in person.
Often. And vote often.
Limit the absentee ballots, because Nancy, I know you're going to be with me. I'll be in Huntington Place for 72 hours.
Really?
Opening absentee ballots. Yeah.
Okay. I will be there. I'll be there election night. So I'll see you there. Say hi.
Yeah.
Wow. So Michael, I mean, you said that Michael has noted that he sent in his ballot via email from Israel. My sister actually sent hers in from Manchester, England, but she actually sent it snail mail. They requested that in Illinois, which was her last place of residence, that it be sent there. And I do believe that Rob Blagojevich is in charge of going ahead and vetting those ballots, so we can all sleep easier.
Bob and I dropped off our absentee ballots at City Hall in Royal Oak this week, and it was pretty cool to see. They have a drop box outside, or you can come inside and drop them off. And you could see in the back of the office behind bulletproof glass, they had boxes and boxes and boxes of ballots. So I think we're going to be very busy. Yes. I'm counting on Monday and then Tuesday. We're doing both of them, and they're telling us to plan for a lot. So good.
Okay.
I can't wait for this to be over. I know.
I'm starting to lose track of time. Did Arnold Palmer Schlong, was that last weekend? I think it was because I remember telling a friend about it on Sunday.
It was, Nancy, but it got extended to this week.
Alan, you got to show the photo now.
Okay, let me. I'm sorry. Here.
I was going to say,
here it is.
A heads up. There we go.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I think that this photo probably would get admitted in a trial on this issue.
Yeah.
I think his hands speak for itself.
Yeah, I think so too. But then the Jeffrey Goldberg piece about Trump and the military, which I was going to bring up during the Hitler discussion earlier. That was last Thursday, because I remember reading it, but I don't think we really talked about it last week. I think I was running the show. I probably didn't bring it up, but it was very damning. So,
well, this week we did have the passing of another legend, and that is former baseball phenom, Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Fernando Valenzuela, who passed away at the age of 63 from an undisclosed illness. He had in his latter years served as a broadcaster for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and earlier in the month they announced that he was going to be taking some time off. They were not sure when or even if he was going to return. Although he is not a member of the Hall of Fame, the Dodgers did retire his number 34 jersey. I was reading some of the statistics about him. In his first 8 starts, first of all, they were all complete games. You're not going to see that ever again. And he won 5 of the 8 as shutouts. 1981 was just this banner year for him. And any thoughts and reflections on Fernando?
I think that's exactly what did it for him. I remember when he came on the scene, had he not started out like that and gotten everyone's attention like that, and then he had that peculiar way of his eyes went up to the sky when he threw the ball. It was a really interesting way to watch him throw. His career really was, it wasn't that it wasn't a good career, but it wasn't really anything Hall of Fame worthy or things of that nature. But that start, I remember I was, 32 years old. It was just unreal. I mean, it was Koufax stuff. You're going out there shutting people out every game. And it wasn't like he had overpowering. He wasn't like Koufax or Nolan Ryan just blowing the bats out of people's hands. It was for a young kid. But other than that, he was a good pitcher. But really, that was the thing that got everyone's attention.
The other guy that passed who was a great pitcher was Louis Tiant, who had a really peculiar setup as well. And I remember, he would like a little. It was just brilliant.
And then he would pivot. He would face the center field and then come back. He did like a 180 to home plate.
But so you're back. It was just beautiful to watch. So but to see these guys go again reminds us of our mortality and how wonderful those times were. I really enjoyed going to Tiger Stadium and seeing. I saw Mel Stottlemyre, Louis Tiant, Palmer, all
the
these
bird.
And
wait a minute, Joel, was that
most
Arnold
of these guys,
Jim Palmer?
Most of these guys.
Arnold Palmer's a great drink. Can I just say that? He should not be known for the whatever. It should be the Arnold Palmer. It is the greatest. I can't get enough of those.
I love Arnold Palmers. They're. I discovered them at a very hot horse show a few years ago, and it was like, woo!
How refreshing.
Can we go back to the pitchers? Most of these.
He said pitchers, not pictures.
Baseball pitchers. These guys with great setups would have a very difficult time now with the time on the clock.
They won't go past 6 innings.
Well,
not
just
only would not go past 6 innings. They wouldn't pitch on time. And they wouldn't get the pitch off on time.
Yeah, it was great.
I think Tiant in either game 5 or 6 of the 1975 World Series between the Red Sox and the Reds, he pitched 168 pitches.
Wow.
I mean, compare that to watching the playoffs last week and where you had 6 pitchers trying to complete 1 game. So, these people were cut of a different cloth. So rest in peace, Fernando. But one of the things that he certainly did was he absolutely boosted Hispanic fan base, and particularly in places like Los Angeles and all, making the observation that here now you had Hispanic fans, white fans, and others in the stands together enjoying America's pastime. So good on you, Fernando.
By the way,
hey, a couple of things. We're going to go to commercial, but I wanted to ask Ed just his thoughts on the polls here in Michigan and the U.S. and what you're making of all that.
Well, first of all, I'm a little bit concerned about the industry because Michigan State put out a poll that's a month old, trying to claim it today. They finished, most of the poll was done in September, and they just put it out. It's been around paper about showing that how far up Harris is in the polls. That's where the polling's at. Number 2, the polling, if you go nationally, if everybody remember the Romney Obama race, okay? All the polls show that Romney was doing kick-ass. Well, I've just learned there was a lot of circle on the fact that all of a sudden, if you look at the real clear politics, you have like all these new polling firms. Right now, the Republicans are loading every state, every poll out there claiming that they're ahead. The reason being is the fact if Trump loses, they said, look at all the polling they say we were ahead. They're creating a case to go bum. So the problem with the polling right now, there are so many polls being done by Republican firms and new Republican firms that you don't even know. All the data is skewed right now. It's close, but I'm just seeing all these pollsters showing up, and even in University of Michigan State should never have done that poll and release it a month after they collected the data. I was really surprised at that.
Garbage poll. I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but the New York Times had an article out yesterday, and I guess the guy from CNN, I can't remember his name, big pollster with CNN, talked about the fact that he believes that the Electoral College is going to be a blowout, whoever wins. That most of these swing states are going to go either for Harris, all for Harris or all for Trump. You ever thought about that?
Yes, I think that's possible because of the states that are in play. Georgia, North Carolina, all these states are in play, which changes the dynamics. Number two, if that happens, this will be the first time where if the Harris wins, that she may win with a smaller margin than Hillary Clinton lost. Okay, because things are so tight across the.
You mean in terms of a popular vote or
popular vote? Yes,
popular vote.
So Ed, I mean, for some of us who feel like we've been on Imodium for the last 6 months, I mean, do you have an inkling right now where things look, or is it just simply too close?
Let me put this another way, Ed, so you don't answer incorrectly. Can you give us some hope?
Well, I think I emailed all of you my cheat sheet. What happened actually in 16 and 20. I hope you read that because I gave you some clarity. It's going to come down to turnout. Okay, as you look at the data that I gave you, it was all about who stayed home and who showed up. It wasn't all this back and forth. So to me, it comes down to turnout. So in Michigan here, so if Trump won by 10,000 votes, he could lose by 10,000. We're basically at a point where it's going to be very close in all the states. And you got to look at Ohio, where the Democrat, he's been winning the U.S. Senate race all the time in a very Republican state. So we're going to have a lot of surprises out there. And I think what you're seeing, Wisconsin's always close, all these states close, but because of the increase now of North Carolina and Georgia coming into play again, everything's in the move. But the problem in the data is so skewed by all these Republican pollsters trying to create a feeling, the fact that Trump is just kicking ass. But it is close.
Oh,
when people say it all comes down to turnout.
I think some of these pollsters are named Potemkin. But anyway, go ahead, man.
When people say it all comes down to turnout, to me that always sounds like the guy on the sportscast who says, to win this game, we got to run the ball, we got to throw the ball, and we got to kick the ball.
Because in all my elections that I predicted, for example, in 2016, the Free Press had Hillary Clinton winning it by 6 points, and I said Trump won by a small margin because I track turnout across the state. That's what I do. I check turnout. Okay. When I look at turnout, I can sort of say who's going to win or lose. In 2016, Saginaw County was the county that represented Michigan. It has been since 1992. So I would look at that. The sheets that I gave everybody, in fact, also I listed all the cities that you can track.
And is the early voting any indication? Do we get any indication of turnout?
Well, the problem with early voting is that we have a lot of traditional Republicans that vote at the polls now voting AV. Right. So if you look at the poll number, you're assuming Republicans are kicking ass in the AV vote. Well, that's because these are traditional poll voters now voting as an AV. It does not mean it's changing. Republicans can outsweep the Democrats. It's just that there's a traditional Republican now voting AV. It's too early to test the AV votes because we're getting skewed data right now. There's a lot of companies that have already checked at the data. Look at all these new AVs. Republicans come in. They've found that these are traditional hardcore Republican voters always vote on election day.
Right.
So it's not like the demographics haven't changed, so we don't know what it really means.
Yeah. I agree with Ed. There's so many polls out here now, but I just got to go with now. We're so close with our feeling. When you look at the crowds, yes, Trump has large crowds, but she has double the number of crowds. You look at Georgia yesterday with 20,000. You look at the people that's out here now. We've been around the city of Detroit and the county in the last 2 weeks. You look at people doing early voting. You go there on the boulevard, you have a line. So I'm just going by the feel. It feels like 2020, and it definitely feels like 2008 in the Black community when we had Barack Obama running for the first time. So I'm just ready for it to be over, and let's just get the game on. Let's see.
And Beverly, I mean, I think similarly, news out of Pennsylvania with early voting, which is breaking records there, but some of it
even Georgia
indicate, and even Georgia seems to be a little bit more bluey than ready. So let's go ahead and see. Allan, let's go to the last segment.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be, all because I live in Detroit.
Hello, Detroit. Election Day is November 5th, but why wait? Beginning Saturday, October 19th, you can vote early at one of Detroit's 14 early vote centers. Early voting runs through Sunday, November 3rd, so let your voice be heard and vote early. If you're voting by absentee ballot, return your ballot as soon as possible. For more information, visit our website or give us a call. And remember to vote, because it's not only your right, it's the right thing to do.
All right. And
downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
All right, we're going through the schmuck list. Steve.
My schmuck is the guy, one of the co-hosts of this show, Fox and Friends. I think his name is Brian Kilmeade.
Oh,
and he suggested on national television that maybe the thing with Trump and the Nazis and the German generals was maybe he didn't realize that Hitler's generals were Nazis. And then after he opened his mouth and took his foot out of it, maybe he kind of thought, wait a minute, did I just say that? But that, to me, anybody that could say something like that in a corner bar, let alone on national television, he's my schmuck of the week.
Good one.
Oh my God, that's a good one. Okay, Barb.
Oh, my schmuck, staying on that theme, is Tucker Carlson, who said in a speech describing the Democrats as a bad girl and Trump is their daddy.
Yeah.
When dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now. I'm not going to lie. This is going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me, and you earned this. You're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl.
Oh my God.
To the cheers of the crowd.
Does
Now-
anybody else think they just got a piercing insight into the marital relations between Mr. and Mrs. Tucker Carlson?
Barb, was he hyperventilating when he was saying it?
He wasn't screaming
Barb,
it.
I actually think that you need to apologize to most of the people we've called schmucks of the week for comparing them to Tucker Carlson. He deserves a different category.
Oh my God.
In this, all we do is we talk about penis size and we talk about spanking. No, but I mean, it's please.
Mrs. Carlson, I'm going to make that bottom rosy red, and you're going to love every minute of it.
Yes, jumping up and down and screaming. I posted the clip in the chat. So that's Tucker is
rosy
Oh,
red.
Steve is standing up. Steve is standing up.
Oh my God. All right, Ed.
Well, first of all, just to talk about something different. Hitler, when he had a tantrum, and this has been documented many times, he chewed the carpeting on the floor.
That sounds Trumpian.
That sounds very weird.
And my schmuck of the week are all the pollsters are buying in, giving out bad data just to screw up the system. They're schmucks because, in fact, a lot of people depend on polls. They're trying to use it as a guide, and they're just out to make a bad reputation like they did back in Romney's time and in 2016.
Ed, I think also when Hitler used to get bad news, he would fling bottles of mustard against the wall. So, yeah. Beverly.
Is it yellow or brown?
None for your pretzel.
They didn't have ketchup there, Alan. Beverly.
I just have two quick ones. Fox News again, schmuck of the week for trying to, when Trump was at the little town hall, small little talking at the barbershop, for them editing and omitting some of his comments. You know, when he clearly didn't understand the question from, questions that was asked of him. So he sounded like, grandpa who didn't understand, but they should not have edited that, So schmuck of the week for Fox News for doing that. And again, J.D. Vance, yesterday, he still will not let it go. At a town hall meeting, he's still claiming that the Haitian population, which is very racist comment he's making about the pets. And then he had on the socks a picture of his dog that passed away earlier this year that helped perpetuate this unbelievable rant. So he's a schmuck for carrying on that and that rhetoric about the Haitian community, and shame on him. That's it.
I agree.
All right. Joel.
I got two. I got Kid Rock, who's just a schmuck. I think he's going to be on stage with Tucker Carlson, actually. I think they're going to throw something together, and that's great to watch. But hearing that the Washington Post is not going to make an editorial opinion and tell voters what they think. Democracy dies in darkness. It also dies when the Fourth Estate doesn't do its job. We need, vigorous journalism. We need honest journalism. The Washington Post has great respect, just like the New York Times, which did come out and advocate for a particular candidate for Harris. And that's really disappointing. So I'm going to go with the editorial staff, whoever made this decision. you know, you're a schmuck and you're an asshole.
I hope that somebody, the media writer at the Washington Post, writes about that in the Washington Post.
Unbelievable.
It's
You know,
just painful.
Unbelievable. You
Sean
have an
Paul.
obligation to the people, you know, who you're trying to educate.
Exactly.
It is a shot. Very disappointing.
Nancy.
Okay, I think I give too many of these awards to media people, but they just keep asking for it. Earlier this week, Susan Ford, the daughter of she's Susan Ford something now, Susan Ford Bales, but the daughter of former President Gerald Ford, gave an interview or made some statement where she said she believed that her father would be backing Harris. Swinging into quick action was Caitlin Buss at the Detroit News, also known as Nolan Finley's understudy, who dashed off a column. She apparently has another Ford child in her Rolodex, and Jack Ford, or John Ford, but he's known as Jack, and interviewed him, and he said, no, my dad was a loyal Republican, and he would be backing Trump. So what we have here is Susan Ford was born the same year I was, which makes her most likely 67 years old, and she's the baby of the family. So what we have is a argument between two elderly siblings over who their dead father might have endorsed for president in this election. And if that isn't the biggest waste of a column I've ever heard, well, not ever heard, but heard in quite some time, that's my schmuck.
Elderly again. What's your standard again of elderly?
Well, if you're old,
Steve, you and I are so far beyond it. It doesn't make any
if you're old enough to get your full Social Security benefits, which for the 1957 babies is 66 years and 5 and 6 months, then I consider you more or less up. So,
yeah. Caitlin Buss is a Hillsdale grad.
I agree with Julie.
All right, Bill.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to make a quick comment. I agree with Ed's schmucks, because what these pollsters are doing is destroying yet another institution of our country. And I think that, you know, we've lost people with the media, we've lost people with the government, and now they're going after yet another institution, which I think is very dangerous. There's nothing to believe in anymore. And to jump on Nancy's, the fact of the matter is, if Gerald Ford's son was right and he was a loyal Republican, he would have never supported Trump. But my schmuck of the week isn't in politics. Well, it is in politics, but not directly. Is the Montgomery, Texas School Board and Library Board, who decided this week, I don't know if any of you read this, but this was really amazing to me, to reclassify Native American history as fiction. And put it in the fiction section of the library. Now, I understand it is since I read this article, been overturned. This is amazing to me. Native American history is not fiction. It's real, just like all other ethnic groups in this country.
Crazy.
And that's crazy stuff. To declare history that we're bothered by because it's not consistent with the words that we use and the principles that we claim to believe in as fiction is to disgrace what this country stands for.
Well, you know, the reality
Americans actually were key to the Second World War with their real language, and no one else spoke, that they were able to pass secrets on the military.
Code talkers.
Yeah.
The last code talker just died a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
So
Wow.
have you ever been to South Dakota, Bill, and seen the
Crazy Horse
Mount Rushmore?
monument that's still under construction? And at that, essentially they took another mountain and turned it into a Mount Rushmore for Crazy Horse rather than the 4 presidents. And every native I've ever known says that is the stupidest goddamn idea. They said Crazy Horse would have been completely appalled by that thing. The idea of destroying a mountain to put an image of he was never photographed. It's just like the generic Indian, on a horse. It's ridiculous. So
I think the latest and Nancy for it. I mean, I saw it like, gosh, 30 years ago. I think the latest plan is they're going to have him flanked by Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder and call it Sturgis Crazy Horse.
That'd be cool. Gene Wilder's deserving. That'd be great.
No.
If you build it, I will come. Allan.
Mine goes to Lindsey Graham for going on the talk shows on Sunday and pushing back on all these generals who were calling Trump a fascist, and he was insisting that's not accurate. The funny, I always remember Rolling Stone did a piece on Lindsey Graham several years ago, and they said Lindsey Graham needs a lion in his life, and John McCain was his lion. And when John McCain died, Trump became his lion. He's a weak human being. He has no, you talk about Mike Rogers shouldn't be deserving of the Senate. There's a guy who has just every time when January 6th happened, he goes, "I'm done. That's it." And there he is. Then he goes over to Mar-a-Lago, second up to Trump. It's really it's disgraceful. He's a disgraceful senator.
Actually, I think to paraphrase Prince, Allan, he needs a lion in his pocket first, but that's a whole different story. Anyways, so
a good comment, by the way, by Ann.
Is the original Young Turk who tried to reform the Republican Party of the 50s unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
There you go.
When he pardoned Richard Nixon, like.
Yeah,
Excuse
and
me?
do you mean that he was? Do you mean, Ann, that he was like an Ottoman or like the inspiration for Rod Stewart's song?
All right.
So I know that we focus a lot on politics here because we consider it to be sort of a core human impulse. But I'm going to go ahead and have my schmuck of the week represent what may even be a more fundamental impulse, which is the biological. My schmuck is Krishna Kunapalli, 39 years old, who was flying on Etihad flight EY7 from Abu Dhabi to Boston, having originated in India itself, who decided 4 hours into the flight that he was going to go back toward the bathroom after spotting what he thought was a rather comely young woman, and asked her, because she had 2 seats empty next to her, if he could sit down while he was waiting for said toilet. She said, of course. And then he started saying how beautiful she was, and then also saying how wealthy he was. He started to touch her hair, and then he offered to see if she would spend the night with him in Boston, and even saying he would give her $5,000 as a gift. He apparently then tried, and he did, in fact, fondle her breast before then going back to his seat. I'm not sure if he made it into the bathroom, where then finally 2 male passengers noticed that the blanket was moving from beneath with far more action than turbulence would have gone ahead and reflected. It turns out that Mr. Kunapalli was following the example of George Costanza by using his body as an amusement park at 39,000 feet. He was then apparently with full exposure of genitalia for about 10 minutes. Oh, by the way, he also tried to take photos of the young woman's breast while he was fondling them.
What was this woman paralyzed or something? I mean, I'd be stabbing that guy with one of those.
I'd be hitting the flight attendant button.
There goes the family show.
You are in Detroit where you belong, Nancy.
They were called, and he was met at Logan Airport by the FBI, and he has been charged. Now, he's an Indian national, so I assume he's probably deportable after conviction. But given that this is a federal charge, Steve, letting you know he still doesn't have an attorney. You don't have to be admitted to the bar in Massachusetts because it's a federal case. I'm just saying, I think Krishna needs you. But Krishna Kunapalli, for being the onanist at 39,000 feet, you're my schmuck of the week. Yeah.
And he did say he had a lot of money, so.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, he'll give you $5,000.
Right. At least.
I can't even respond to that. I cannot believe you took that much time to tell this story about this guy.
Well, I wanted to give
kind
him
of
time
schmucks we got out here in the world. This guy.
Steve, I wanted to give him time to finish. But anyways, thank you all for being part of our show yet again with another week that was, and he's gone. Thank you, Steve Fishman.
Wait,
in
pissed him
absentia.
off.
Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus. Thank you, Beverly Watts. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And thank you, and with the last word always.
Hold on.
Allan
Before you
Lengel.
go there, Alan, make sure you add that people need to get out and vote this week.
Yeah,
People
absolutely.
need to get out and vote. Absolutely.
Yep.
And vote. Don't listen to the Detroit News, although they won't give you any advice. Don't rely on them to tell you, give you guidance. I just find that so crazy. Like, oh, we're so, amazing that neither candidate is good enough for us.
The Post is so disturbing, though.
That
What the
is very
Post is
disturbing.
doing, it is almost a betrayal.
That's going to be a scandal. That's going to be like the
It's a
LA
scandal.
Times scandal as well.
And when was the last time they didn't make a recommendation? Or
I think they've done it every single.
right, they've always
election.
endorsed somebody, and
Yeah,
this is an easy choice. I think.
Yeah,
Jesus.
it is.
And
Not if you're Nolan Finley.
if
And
you read
Alan,
their-
how should
if
we
you-
drive home?
drive home safely.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.